Welcome to this preview of the second episode of the Jessamine History Walks podcast, the Locust Grove Cemetery audio tour. I'm Carrie Green. Locust Grove Cemetery is an African-American cemetery in Nicholasville, Kentucky. In February 2019, the library recorded interviews with current and former Jessamine County residents about their relatives who were buried in Locust Grove. In this preview, Jennifer Smith and Anna Kenion remember their parents, Dorothy and Andrew Smith. Dorothy L. Smith was born in 1930 and died in 2013. She was the mother of 12 children. At the time of her death, she had 24 grandchildren and 17 great-grandchildren. Jennifer Smith spoke to us about her mother by phone from her home in Michigan.
We had a wonderful mother, and I really loved her, and she loved us, and that was the biggest part of the joy, her loving us, really loving us and caring for us. She not only was my mother, I looked at her as my friend and my confidant, because whenever I talked to her about anything, if I asked her not to say anything to anyone, she wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And she always had this saying when we did share stuff with her. One of her favorite words would always be, well, because she didn't have no other words. And then sometimes if we shared something with her or she knew something and it catch her off guard, she would just say, now. And we used to laugh about that all the time because of the one word. And one of my sisters had told her, you done dug that well so deep, we all going to fall in it.
Anna Kenion spoke to us about some of the challenges her mother faced while raising her family in Nicholasville.
Growing up in that poverty area, that meant that we had no running water, but she would pack that water to make sure that old washing machine was washing those clothes. She hung them out on the line to dry, and like I said, she just made do with trying to feed all these kids she was responsible for.
She would get up before we go to school and made sure we had breakfast before we went out the door. She did not send us out the door hungry, and she would fix our lunches. So, that right there, she cared for us in that way. When her health started declining, she lived with my older sister, Brenda, and in her bedroom, my sister had a picture of Jesus on the wall, and she would look at it every day because it was in her eye gate. Mm-hmm. And as she start really slowing down, and we knew, she started saying, I'm ready to go home. And we were saying, Mom, you are home. She goes, no, I'm ready to go home with him. And that just blessed us because she recognized, and she said, he told me to come on. It took us a little bit to realize that she was talking about Jesus. Mm-hmm. So that prepared us, to know. And that right there was heartfelt, heartwarming, because he said, come on, and I'm ready to go home. So we was prepared and accept that. So the day that she took her last breath, she was smiling.
At her homegoing service, a lot of people got, not even just at homegoing service, but her homegoing service was just a great celebration because having that many children and being married, and to my father, who was, he was loving and everything, but he ended up going legally blind. And so when you're talking about having to deal with, a man who feels like he wasn't a man at times because he couldn't provide for his family when he had to go on disability, and and helping him to and care for his needs of helping him to see the things that he could not see, and just deal with his whole emotional state. She was just a very strong lady, but who had enough love that she showed. She never took her frustrations and life circumstances out on anyone. So she was just a true model of the virtuous woman in the Bible that we that we read so much about. And that's what we put on her casket, inside, that was lifted up was, that she was a virtuous woman, who sacrificed a lot of her things that she, probably missed out on for the love of others, because her life spoke very powerful and a great volume of what LOVE was, and that goes a long way.
Andrew Thomas Smith was born in 1930 and died in 1993. Anna Kenion told us more about her father's life.
He was a man who was very well known in the community as the deacon, the elder who prayed long prayers, and he could sing, and that's the fond memory I have of him would be in the middle of the night, hearing him at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning singing praises unto God, But he in between of the coughs and that he was experiencing, because he had also developed emphysema, and so it was times that he would be coughing, so profusely, and I would be praying to God, please let him breathe, and then he would burst out in a song, and so that was a comfort for me to hear him singing those praise songs throughout his life. And then again, as I alluded to earlier, about when he became blind, that feeling of being your manhood being stripped, he still stuck it out with all his kids. He made sure they went to church together. One of the funny things I remember of him is that we never owned a car. Like I said, we grew up in the most poorest part, not in the most poorest, but in the city, down on Jefferson Street, and they called it the bottom for a reason. And so my parents always had to depend on other people giving them a ride to the grocery store or to church or wherever. And I never forget, Dad came home one day and he pulled up in this little white car, and we was like, well, my dad never seen him drive before, but he's like, come on, get in. I got a car and we're gonna take a ride. We got as far as at the top of the hill of East Maple Street. And the car stopped working. Oh, no. And so we had to walk home. And so that it was like, and that was a lot. We had the car for one day that I remember. But I do remember him being still committed to, being that godly man that he was trying. And he hadn't always been there. Before I was born, he, into some things, that was not, appropriate. But then he became, totally committed to God. And so I'm glad I got to know him on the sweet side. I tried to get him to get involved with the Kentucky Department of the Blind, to go down to learn, some new skills that will help him adapt daily. But he was just kind of set in his ways and did not want to leave his home. And so we just tried to teach him what, we could to help him, like, for example, with the plate, we know that the 12 o'clock one and like on the clock, and I would say to him, Dad, your mashed potatoes are at 2 o'clock, your green beans are at 5 o'clock, and that kind of those little small things. And then he also received their cassettes. Back then it was cassettes, to hear the word of God. So it was a lot. He would get the Bible on the cassettes, and so that would still help him to get the word, even though he couldn't no longer read it. But they were committed to each other, and they were committed to family, and for that I am awesomely blessed.
Thank you for listening to this preview of the Locust Grove Cemetery audio tour. Find the complete tour in the second episode of the Jessamine History Walks podcast. It's available at jesspublib.org/Jessamine-history-walks. Our theme music is by Scott Whidden. Learn more about Scott and his music at his website, adoreforadesk.com.